Good morning, good evening, and good night, everybody. My name is Sarah, and we're back in California. That can only mean one thing. It's time for an unhaul. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, I live in a college dorm, and whenever I finish reading a book, I either put it back on my shelf or I put it on a different shelf, which just means I take home to California. Usually, when I take something home to California, it means I want to get rid of it. It means, like, as much as I enjoyed this book, I don't have the space for it. I don't really have any intentions on rereading it, so inevitably I will unhaul it. It's a little bit different for manga, though, because I almost never buy manga anymore. Like, as much as I love it, the only series I actively buy is My Hero Academia. So all the books I've read all through my high school career have stayed in California. And I finally went through my shelf and I'm like, okay, I need to figure out what's what and how's how. And I had to go through them and I had to figure out what I want to keep, what I want to get rid of. And once again, I have very limited shelf space. So I had to get rid of a lot of them. So with that all being said, let's dive on in. Now first, let's go through the 3 mangas that I don't have any series for. Most of these I at least have 2 copies of the volumes. These 3 I do not. So the first one is actually one of the first manga I ever bought on my own, that is Cirque du Freak. I really tried to continue reading this, especially online. Like, I never bought any of the other volumes, but I really wanted to continue the story, and I just don't like what the direction they chose to go with it is. Cirque du Freak is the story of a kid who accidentally becomes a vampire to save his friend. He ends up having to live in the Cirque du Freak, which is the freak show that came to his town one day where he met the vampire. He ends up, like, becoming best friends with the boy who's half snake. They go on a lot of adventures, but then the part where I don't like, where they went off in their own direction, was when they decided to leave the circus to go visit the vampire coven, and I just don't like that arc. I don't like that plot point. I don't like the direction it's going, and honestly, I don't even know if they're ever going to return to the circus. And so I have no intentions of buying the more volumes. I have no intention of rereading this. I have no intentions on continuing the series, so it is going in my unhaul box. Next volume is Siren. I only have volume 2 for some reason. I cannot find volume 1. I don't know if I ever owned a volume 1. I don't really remember what this story is about. It's sort of like you get trapped in an alternate dimension and there's psychic powers and there's a girl with a sword, and again, it's been a very long time since I've read this. I like the art style. I think, I might be wrong, but I think it's by the same person who wrote Air Gear, which I kind of liked that series, but again, it just doesn't hold any water for me, and I don't think I actually ever read volume 1. And the last of the 3 volumes that I have no connection to any of this series is 7 Billion Needles. This is a small horror manga. I know there's more volumes, and this one is kind of like the main character gets like an alien thing stuck in their body or like stuck in their mind, and the person can die, but the alien will reform their body, and they have to fight giant monsters, and it's really graphic, and it's really like, there's person being disintegrated to their skeleton on the cover. That should really set the tone for what this is. I'm not the biggest fan of the art style. It was interesting, but I'm not the big fan of horror stories to begin with, so I'm going to get rid of this one. I guess this next one sort of counts as only having 1 volume, but that is Hollifield. This is the entire series. The series only lasted 3 volumes, so it's not that thick, but it did take me a hot second to get through this one. Hollifield is a story about a girl who accidentally ends up applying for the wrong school. She ends up in a school for training the next generation of evil, mastermind, scientist, villain people. And she's not smart, she's not evil, she doesn't understand anything, and she struggles to create a simple working golem, which in this case is robotic and not made of clay. It's just all this crazy madness of her trying not to get detention, trying not to become the lowest person in the class, because if you get the lowest grade in the class, you get detention, and no one has ever returned from detention. And so that really sets up this, she has to like beat all the people who were smart and were chosen, and she showed up there accidentally. I don't remember the end of this volume, but like, I'm sure she survived. I'm sure she got out fine. I'm not entirely sure how they wrapped up a 3-year, what was set up to be 3 years and 3 volumes, but I read it, I don't remember it, I have no interest in rereading it. Next up, we have all the series that I started reading and will never complete. First of those being Dobahbah. This is volume 1 and 2. This series, like, it really focuses on the characters of the town. It follows sushi restaurants and stalkers and like this strange being that doesn't have a head. There's also serial killers and all this stuff that exists inside this town that the story takes place in. Again, it's focusing on the town. It is not focusing on the characters. I mean, obviously the characters are the main part, but really the town is the focus. The next two mangas were again one of the first ones I ever bought with my own money, and that is YuGiOh 5Ds, again volume 1 and 2. I bought these because they had YuGiOh cards inside, and I was such a huge YuGiOh player when I was in like middle school. I was absolutely awful at it, but it didn't stop me from trying. This is the third series in the YuGiOh universe. It is set in the future where, like, once again, YuGiOh is such like a society focused on card games and games in general. It basically has taken over the world, and this time they're playing card games on motorcycles, and again, a holographic technology, so they're big and cool and fighting and awesomeness. And honestly, 5Ds is like one of my favorite series of the YuGiOh universe. It takes place in like a society that got split in half during a big explosion. You have the satellite where it's basically the slums where our main character comes from. And then you have like the high and mighty, like the prestige and the glory and the money and the wealth over on the mainland. And our main character has a rivalry with someone currently living on the mainland, and it's this cool and epicness. And originally YuGiOh had a huge Egyptian aesthetic. 5Ds has a huge Aztec and Maya aesthetic, and I think it's so amazing. And I love it. Never got into manga though. Anime only for me. Next series is a Jin Denny Human. I tried reading this, I really did, but I did not like the art style. I did not like the direction the story was going. A Jin follows a society where basically things deemed as non-human have shown up. They look human, they're born into human families, but they can manipulate these unholy creatures that only other Jin can see. And what these Jin can do is very dark and very gruesome and very gory, and so I was just not in the correct mindset to read this series. I really tried, and my brother tried watching the anime, but they tried to do that weird CGI mixing with hand drawing, and I'm like, it doesn't flow, it really doesn't. So I have the first 4 volumes here, and I will never be picking up volume 5, so I'm just gonna get rid of these. And the last incomplete series, which I will never be continuing, therefore I'm unhauling, is the Vinland Saga. These are hardback manga. These are kind of expensive, all things considered. How much were these? These were $23. A normal manga costs $10 to $13. And so, like, they're thicker and they're prettier, and as much as I love Vikings and as much as I love Vinland and all that whole concept, I didn't like this. Mainly, I don't like the art style. And I'm just, it had so much potential, it really did. It follows our main character from a kid who snuck away on his father's Viking boat to go fight in war when he was just a child. He ends up watching his entire crew get slaughtered, and he's taken in by the enemy. And there he's raised under the promise that one day you can kill our boss. And it goes all around the world. It starts off with a main character living in Iceland, and then obviously Vinland is the name of like an area close to Canada, and then volume 2, I believe, is taking place in England. So a lot of traveling, a lot of Viking, but I just didn't like the art style. I wasn't a big fan of where the story was going, so I'm unhauling it, especially because I can't afford volume 3. And the last series that I'm unhauling, that I own every single volume of, is Pandora Hearts. This series has 22 volumes, and I've read and bought, well, I mean, I got most of them as a gift, every single one of them. And I was really enjoying it up until, like, volume 15. And volume 15 through 22 was kind of eh. This story takes place in a universe where people can come and judge you for your sins and send you into something known as the Abyss, the dark underworld where chains exist. Chains are like monsters. And our main character, Oz, on the eve of him becoming, like, his, like, adulting ceremony, like, what's it called when you're, like, legally an adult and you have a party? Coming of age ceremony. The people show up and they're like, your sin is your entire being. You're alive, therefore you must be punished. And so he is cast into the abyss without really knowing what's going on. And there he meets the Black Rabbit, who is a chain who can appear as either a giant black menacing rabbit or a young girl. And they decide to make a deal so they can both get out of the abyss together. And when they arrive out of the abyss, they realize time has passed. They were in the abyss much longer than anyone realized. They haven't aged, but everyone in the above world has. And so they come out of the dark abyss, realizing that they have a time limit and they don't know anyone they used to know. And so that's the whole concept, and it's about them fighting monsters and them running against time, because every time Oz uses the Black Rabbit's power, he has a little tattoo that keeps growing. And one day, once that tattoo is complete, it will kill him and send him back into the abyss. So yeah, it's a very interesting concept. I just did not like how the story was completed. So just because I have all the volumes out right now, I'm going to show them. So Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume... I just hit the bedpost. Volume 4, Volume 5, Volume 6, Volume 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I just hit... No, don't fall. 11, 12, and 13. Volume 14, Volume 15, Volume 16, Volume 17, Volume 18, Volume 19, Volume 20, Volume 21, I lied, there's more than 22, but 22, 23, and finally Volume 24. Again, I bought all of these. Well, I mean, half of these were a gift, but that's a lot of money to spend on books I just like... it was great up until the end, and I really don't have the shelf space to store these. I'm not attached to the characters anymore, so Unhaul they will be. So as my bed is now a mess, I suppose it is time to sign off. So once again, thank you guys all so much for watching. If you want to try and convince me to keep any of these, it's probably not going to happen. I really have decided that these are the ones that are going to go, but you can try in the comment section down below. And while you're there, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. As always, good night, good evening, and good morning, everybody.